I'm really glad you guys are taking the time to watch the information about anxiety. From what I recognize with working with many students over years, whether you're a first-time test taker or you've taken it multiple times, there's a lot of things that you need to hear that you're saying negative things to yourself or you can prepare with. So let's dig into it. This test is a high-pressure test. It's a high-stakes test. Taking the NCLEX to become a PN, an RN, there's a lot at stake with that. So too much stress can actually deplete your working memory and it can affect your performance. I will say a little bit of stress is good. A little bit of anxiety actually keeps you sharp. So don't be too nervous, and also don't mistake anxiety for excitement. Some of you all are preparing so much and so knowledgeable, you don't know if it's anxiety or excitement because you are excited to actually take the test. You're ready to do this. You only need to know as much as everybody else in the room. You don't need to know all the tiny corners of the specific areas. They just want to make sure you're competent to show up and perform as a nurse and have the basic understanding of the tests that are at hand, along with the diagnosis interventions, what you're going to see. Stress means that you care. Too much of it's going to be a problem, but caring is not a problem. So there's three things that we need to address while we're talking about anxiety. There's going to be the fear of the unknown. What's going to happen? There's going to be the fear of inadequacy, and that happens the most, and actually I have the most to speak about with nursing students with that. That's the fear that you're not prepared. And then the fear of the stakes, the fear of how high these stakes are and what you're going to be able to achieve once it's completed, once you've passed this test. The fear of the unknown, there's a lot of ways that we can fix that. Make it a known pattern. How do we make it a known pattern? You all know that you can buy test banks like UWorld or Archer, and these things mimic the test. The students that I work with in person, I have them do 50 questions a day using one of those resources. And when you're using those resources, if you do it consistently, right? It's not about the motivation and I can get up and I can do 200 questions today. If you're not doing that consistently every day, it's a problem. You have to do consistent questions every day. And when you do that, when you sit down for the NCLEX, the screen looks the same. The calculator looks the same. You can click away the time box. These things don't need to distract you. I tell my students that I work with on a regular basis, when you go sit for the NCLEX, this is just another UWorld test that you're taking. And it's another test that you're going to get above average, and you're going to walk out of there and you're going to be confirmed as a nurse within a day or so. You can do this. If you're going to do 50 questions a day, take them seriously. When you go to the NCLEX site and you walk into that building, the building shouldn't be intimidating. Where you're going shouldn't be intimidating. The city, the location, make sure you drive there the night before so you know where you're going. But this is just another test on a different computer that you know exactly what it looks like. Practice it with respect. When you're at home, don't do the questions while you're making dinner or while something else is going on in the other room. Don't do the questions while you're watching TV. You're going to do better if you're hyper-focused on what you're doing. That's why I say treat the practice tests with respect too. It's even a huge distraction when you go to take the test because with the NCLEX you can wear the earbuds or you can have those headphones on and you can almost hear your own heartbeat. Well, if that's going to be a distraction, practice doing that before you actually sit for your boards. The fear of inadequacy, I can take a few minutes on this one. You need to hear it. Be selfish now. You all are working in environments where you can pick up as many hours and they're giving you some money to do that, but you're working double time for half the pay. Why are you picking up all these hours and taking away from the time to study when you can organize a calendar and be done with this in the next 4 weeks? It's an added distraction. Minimize the distractions and hyper-focus on this, and you need to believe in yourself. This is the fear that you're not prepared. Fear of inadequacy is the fear that you're not prepared. So prepare. Make sure you create a schedule. So if it's going to be 4 weeks, 2 weeks, or 6 weeks, or the 45 days, make the schedule now. The purpose of the videos and the lectures that we're creating here, they help you compartmentalize the content that you're going to see in each one of those sections. So if you recognize that there's a section that you're not doing well in, that's a gap, work harder in that section. Whether it's going to be fundamentals, leadership, med surg, which is broken up into the different body systems, cardiac, respiratory, GI, pediatrics, you know what I'm getting at. Wherever you have a gap, work a little bit harder in that area. Do those 50 questions a day. Make sure you treat the test with respect. Start with the subject matters that are harder and lay out that calendar and that plan where you're not doing a bunch in one day. You're just staying consistent in every day. You're staying inundated in that world, using all the words, using all the jargon. They're yours. You're a nurse. You should start thinking like that right now. I truly care about your success. I want you to pass the NCLEX the next time you take it after watching this series. But I can't want it more than you want it. You got to feel that. Work hard every single day. I can't want it more than you. You should question yourself, are you respecting yourself enough to step away from the distractions? Now, when we talk about fear of inadequacy, this is your montage. This is your work. This is your hustle. Every day you're doing those questions, and I know it's really hard because you're taking time away from your kids and your family. But what I always tell my students is evaluate the reasons why you're doing this. Why are you doing this? Do you want to do better for yourself? Do better for your family? Do you want the flexibility to work wherever you want? Pick whatever schedule you want? Well, if those are true, then you can't use the things that you're doing it for as the excuse that's holding you back. You use that as motivation. You carry that with you. I'm going to do better for my children than I had when I was younger. You're going to do it, and you can, and you got to believe that. When it comes to the fear of inadequacy and making sure you study and stay consistent, make sure you remediate on all your old tests. So now that you know you should be doing 50 questions a day, trying to separate each one of those sections, and then sprinkle in some of the old content that you're familiar with, after those 50 questions a day and you're getting closer to crunch time, go back and remediate on some of the older tests that you've done. Challenge yourself to go back to the old test and see if you can get the ones that you had wrong before right again. And if you can get them right now, explain why. What's the etiology? Why did you get them wrong before? And can you explain now why it's going to be the correct answer? That's how you need to study. The fear of inadequacy is all about preparation, guys. And when it comes down to it, if you want to train for a mile, you need to run 2. And when you get there, you're going to get the win. The last one, this is huge to me. This is gigantic. Stop with your negative talk, right? And it sounds like I'm angry at you. I am a little bit, okay? If you wouldn't say it to somebody else, don't say it to yourself. Don't tell yourself, I can't do this, or I'm not going to be able to do this, or this was terrible, or this is going to be impossible, or I'm not going to do good on this test. You need to start changing the way that you say things because the rest of your body can hear it. What you speak out into the world will come into fruition. I will pass this test. I will start doing better on my tests. It don't have to be unrealistic. I'm going to get 100% on all my tests. That's not a real thing. But I am going to start improving. I am going to start doing more questions. I am going to be prepared enough after I commit to this to pass the NCLEX. And when you sit for the NCLEX and you get that whiteboard, that marker board that you're not supposed to, brain dump on, write on that marker board real big, I will be a nurse today. I've had so many students that walk in and they said, I'm going to do it. When you sit for the NCLEX, are you going to get question fatigue? Do you get wore out after doing 20 or 40 questions? Of course you do. But that practice of doing 50 at a time is going to help you with the long haul. Look down at that whiteboard. It says, I'm going to be a nurse today. Sit up straight and start giving that test more respect like you're supposed to. But stop with the negative talk. Don't say things out loud that you wouldn't say to somebody else because nobody's saying it about you. Say your scores are getting a little better. Write down your biggest fear. Not when you take the NCLEX, right now. Sit down and say, what are the fears about me not passing my test? If you think about it, if you fail the NCLEX, nothing's actually being taken from you. You weren't a nurse already. You just have to stick it out for 45 more days, and you have to endure that much more hustle. But now's the time to hustle. Don't make excuses. Be extremely selfish with your time and what you're going to put into yourself so you can get that outcome and you don't have to deal with this anymore. And that leads me to the last one, which is going to be fear of the stakes. These are high stakes. It's the life ender. This is the most terrible test. I'm just not going to make it after I don't pass this. I've worked with students that have graduated 14 years ago. And I work with them for a little while and then they pass. Their life changes. Everything that they've said to themselves for the last 14 years changes. You just need to believe in yourself like that, and that's 100% true. So the fear of the stakes, what's going to happen? Well, nothing. Your life isn't over. You just got to put in a little bit more work. This test does not define you. Okay, read that a couple of times. It doesn't define you. I've worked in the emergency department for years, been in nursing for 15 years. So when I walk into the room, over that 15 years working in the ER, you know how many patients came up to me and said, whoa, before you take care of me, how many times did you take your NCLEX? None. They don't ask you. They don't care. You're going to work with people. There's people you work with right now that you didn't know that they failed their NCLEX multiple times. Because the pressure that you're putting on yourself is yours. It's not anybody else throwing that at you. So stop doing it. Let go of the fear of failure and let go if you've had past instances where you didn't pass the NCLEX. You don't need to hold on to that. Today's a new day and you're going to grind so we can get past this test and you won't have to take it ever again. There's current managers in these huge hospital systems that have failed that NCLEX 5-7 times. I know that varies by state, so don't be appalled by that number, but there's people that are managing other nurses that have failed this test multiple times. You can do it. So a couple other things that I want to add on is I've worked with a couple unique students, and one of them is the perfectionist. Stop. You all read the book, you write down the whole book, you recite the book, and then out of all that concentration, out of all those words, you're not really consuming the principles that you need. You don't need to be a perfectionist. You only need to know as much as everybody else in the room when you sit down for boards. Did you graduate college with somebody and maybe you didn't pass the NCLEX and they did? And you're like, how did that happen? Maybe they're a better test taker. Maybe they controlled their anxiety. Not passing the NCLEX isn't going to define you. It's not going to make you a worse nurse after you finally do pass. Some test takers are actually better interactive people and more personable. When it comes down to nursing, you can learn all these facts, but what really matters when you're at the bedside and somebody's dying or you're talking to somebody's family, it's how you care when you treat them. That's 100% real. So get the facts, practice the facts, apply them, do the daily questions, do everything meaningfully and purposefully, and you're gonna pass this. Somebody once told me what fail means is your first attempt in learning. You're only a failure if you stop. You're only a failure if you give up. So I'm going to end with this. You got to believe in yourself. You got to watch this video. I'll be your hype man all day. Play it on repeat. You can do it. I've taught students that had cancer that were diagnosed while I was teaching them. I've taught students that had family members that became deceased while they were learning and in this process. I've taught students that have been 1 year, 2 year, 10 years, 14 years, graduated nursing school, and just needed a handout. You're not looking for a handout, you're looking for a hand up. And I'll give it all day. Use your resources. Lean on your husbands, lean on your wives. Take that time to yourself. Even my own wife, when she was in nursing school, we had an infant, and she felt this depletion when she was supposed to be with our child when she had to study. So I took on the responsibility during that time to help her out. You can count on other people. It's not a handout that people are giving to you. It's just a hand up. Now's your time. So I'm going to end on this. You need to be selfish. You need to prioritize yourself. And you need to take this as seriously as I am when I'm teaching it to you. Because if you take it that seriously, you're going to comprehend it that seriously. And when you sit down, it's just going to be another U-World test that you're going to get above average, and the next day you're going to be a nurse. You got this, guys.